They say a snake in the grass always shows its fangs sooner or later. Imagine your man leaving you, not just for anybody, but for the one woman you trusted most, your best friend. Everyone thought I was just getting by, down on my luck, nothing special to offer. But little did they know, behind the curtain, I was pulling in $500,000 a year. And when the secret came out, whew, that was the day the tables turned. Our life, or what I thought was our life, was a carefully curated photograph. Leo and me, 5 years in, the kind of couple people pointed to at parties. He was the charming artist, the dreamer with a guitar in one hand and a half-finished canvas in the other. I was the steady one, the quiet anchor to his magnificent, chaotic ship. And then there was Chloe, my best friend since college, the third musketeer, the one who completed our little triangle. She was always there, a permanent fixture on our couch, an extra plate at our dinner table, the keeper of all our inside jokes. We were a unit, unbreakable. Or so I thought. The cracks started small, almost invisible, like fine lines in old porcelain. You don't notice them at first. You run your hand over the surface and it still feels smooth. But the weakness is there, deep inside, waiting for the right pressure to shatter everything. It began with his phone. For years, that thing had been an open book, left on the coffee table, the nightstand, wherever. Suddenly, it was living a new life, permanently screened down, like it was hiding something shameful. When I'd walk into the room, he'd angle it away with a twitch of his wrist, so subtle, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Then came the missed calls. I'd be at my desk, deep in a project, and call him on his lunch break like I always did. It would ring and ring, then go to voicemail. An hour later, a text would pop up. Sorry, got tied up with a client. Super busy day. A busy day at the bookstore he managed part-time? It felt off. But I pushed the feeling down. Doubt is a poison. And I didn't want to poison the one good thing I had. The cold shoulder was next. The easy affection we'd shared for years started to feel like a performance. He'd kissed my cheek when he came home, but it was a dry, papery gesture, emotion he was going through. The late-night talks, the ones where we'd lay in the dark and map out our future, were replaced by a heavy silence, filled only by the sound of his thumb scrolling on that phone. But the real red flag, the one that waved so violently I couldn't ignore it, was Chloe's voice coming out of his mouth. You know, Chloe says this new restaurant downtown is overrated. He'd mention, echoing the exact opinion she'd given me a week prior. Or, Chloe thinks I should be more aggressive about selling my art. It was constant. Her thoughts, her opinions, her perspective, all being channeled through the man I loved. He stopped asking what I thought. He just told me what Chloe thought. I remember one night specifically. We were having dinner, just the three of us, at our little dining table. I had made my signature lasagna, the one they both claimed to love. The air was thick with something I couldn't name, a strange, charged energy. I watched them across the table. They were laughing at a joke I hadn't heard, their eyes locking for just a second too long. It was a private moment, and I was the intruder in my own home. Leo reached for the wine, and his hand brushed against Chloe's. It was nothing, a fleeting accident, but neither of them pulled away immediately. For a split second, their fingers lingered, a silent conversation passing between them that I wasn't privy to. In that moment, the perfect picture didn't just crack, a huge, jagged piece fell away, revealing the ugly truth behind it. The betrayal wasn't on its way, it was already here. But the betrayal was closer than I ever thought, sitting right at my own dinner table. Betrayal is an insidious thing. It doesn't announce itself with a marching band and a parade. No, it creeps into your life, disguised as friendship, as casual touches and shared glances, until one day you wake up and realize the very foundation of your world has been eroded from beneath you. For me, that day came on a Tuesday, a ridiculously normal, boring Tuesday that would end up being the dividing line in my life, before and after. I'd had a major breakthrough with a difficult client, a win I was desperate to celebrate. I decided to come home early, pick up a bottle of champagne, and surprise Leo. I remember walking up the path to our little rented house, feeling light, happy, full of a hope that now seems painfully naive. I noticed Chloe's beat-up sedan parked a few houses down the street, which was odd. She usually parked right in the driveway. A little alarm bell went off in my head, a tiny, tinny sound I chose to ignore. I unlocked the front door, quiet as a mouse, the champagne bottle cold in my hands. The house was silent. "Leo?" I called out, my voice echoing in the hallway. Nothing. I walked toward our bedroom, a smile on my face, ready to burst in and announce my good news. And that's when I heard it, a soft murmur of voices from behind the closed door. His voice and hers. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I couldn't make out the words, just the intimate, hushed tones. I told myself it was nothing. They were just talking. Chloe had probably come over to vent about her latest dating disaster. But my heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread. I leaned closer, my ear pressed against the cool wood of the door. "Don't know how to tell her," I heard Leo say, his voice strained. "She's so predictable, Chloe. So safe, it's suffocating." And then Chloe's voice, smooth as silk, laced with a venom I'd never heard before. "Then don't tell her. Let her figure it out. She's not stupid, Leo. Just comfortable. You deserve to be with someone who excites you, someone who sees the real you." The air left my lungs in a single gut-wrenching gasp. The champagne bottle slipped from my numb fingers and crashed to the hardwood floor, a sound like a gunshot in the silent house. The voices inside stopped. The doorknob rattled, and the door swung open. There they were. Leo, looking panicked, his shirt unbuttoned, Chloe behind him, her face a mask of fake concern that quickly curdled into defiance when she saw the look on my face. The scene was so cliché it would have been laughable if it wasn't my life imploding in real time. "Maya," Leo started, taking a step toward me. "It's not what you think, isn't it?" My voice was hollow, a stranger's voice. I looked past him at the woman who was supposed to be my sister, my confidant. "You." Chloe crossed her arms, that defiant look hardening into a sneer. "Don't look at me like that, Maya. This has been coming for a long time. You just refuse to see it." The audacity of it, the sheer unmitigated gall, sent a wave of white-hot rage through me, but it came out as a whisper. "Get out." "Now, Maya, let's be reasonable," Leo began. "Get out." This time it was a roar, torn from a place deep inside me I didn't know existed. "Both of you, get out of my house. Now." They left. Leo had the decency to look ashamed, but Chloe walked past me with her head held high, a smug little smile playing on her lips. She thought she'd won. The door clicked shut behind them, and the silence they left in their wake was deafening. I slid down the wall, my back against the cool plaster, and finally let myself break. The sobs were ragged, animalistic sounds of pain and humiliation. I had been played for a fool by the two people I had built my world around. They have a saying in the old country my grandmother was from: "You never know who's in your corner till the lights go out." My lights had just been extinguished, and I was utterly, completely alone in the dark. They probably imagined me there, a crumpled mess on the floor for days, weeks even. They thought they'd crushed me. But the joke was on them. Here's the part of the story they never knew, the part they couldn't have imagined in their wildest, most self-absorbed dreams. While Leo was finding himself with his half-hearted paintings and part-time bookstore job, and while Chloe was complaining about her dead-end admin position, I was quietly, methodically, building an empire from a laptop in our spare bedroom. To them, I was just Maya, stable, predictable, the one with the boring work-from-home job. When they'd ask what I did, I'd give them the simple version. "I'm a digital marketing consultant," I'd say. "I help businesses grow their online presence." It was the truth, but it was like describing a hurricane as a bit of a breeze. What I didn't tell them was that my clients weren't small local shops. They were Silicon Valley tech giants, international luxury brands, and high-profile CEOs who paid me exorbitant sums to ghostwrite their thought leadership articles and architect their multi-million-dollar ad campaigns. I was the secret weapon behind some of the biggest names in the industry. While Leo slept in until 10, I was up at 5, on calls with clients in Zurich and Singapore. While he was out for beers with his buddies, complaining about his lack of inspiration, I was hunched over my keyboard, fueled by black coffee and sheer determination, closing a deal worth more than his annual salary. I worked in silence. I celebrated my wins in silence. I transferred the profits into investment accounts Leo didn't even know existed, in a bank he'd never heard of. Last year, my net income was just over $500,000. I remember one night, a few months before everything fell apart. I was in the kitchen on a hushed video call with a new client in Japan. It was a massive contract, a game changer. I had the earbuds in, pacing back and forth, negotiating the final terms. Leo wandered in, half asleep, looking for a glass of water. I saw his reflection in the dark kitchen window, his brow furrowed in confusion. I quickly ended the call with a polite, "I'll circle back via email tomorrow," and pulled the earbuds out, plastering a calm smile on my face. "Who was that?" he asked, yawning. "Oh, just a potential new client," I said, keeping my voice light. "Nothing major." He just nodded, completely uninterested. "Cool. Hey, do you think we can afford that trip to Mexico this year? Chloe was saying there's some amazing deals right now." I looked at him, at this man who had no idea that I could buy that entire resort in Mexico if I wanted to. I could have paid off his student loans, bought him the art studio of his dreams, and funded his entire life without breaking a sweat. But I never said a word. Why? At first, it was to protect his ego. I knew he was sensitive about money, about feeling like he wasn't the provider. I didn't want him to feel diminished by my success. But as time went on, my silence became a form of self-preservation. I saw his lack of drive, his tendency to take the easy way out. I realized that if he knew the extent of my wealth, he wouldn't be inspired, he'd be enabled. He would stop trying altogether. So I let him believe I was just making enough to cover our bills and maybe a little extra. I let him think we were equals, struggling together. It was a liable mission, one I told myself was for his own good. But really, I was protecting what I had built from his complacency. It raises a question, doesn't it? If you were in my shoes, would you keep quiet about your success, or would you rub it in their face? For months after they left, I was tempted to send them a screenshot of my bank account, to show them both what a colossal mistake they'd made. But I didn't. I held back. I let them think they had left me with nothing. I let them believe I was the one who had lost. I chose silence, because silence was my sharpest weapon. The weeks that followed the explosion were a masterclass in public gloating. Leo and Chloe wasted no time. It was as if they had a checklist for newly betrayed and unbothered, and they were ticking off every box with theatrical flair. Their relationship wasn't just a relationship, it was a Broadway production, and they wanted everyone to have a front row seat. Their social media became a sickening highlight reel. There they were, clinking wine glasses at our favorite Italian restaurant, the one where Leo first told me he loved me. The caption read, "Finally with someone who gets me, #soulmate." A week later, a photo of them on a hike at our spot, the scenic overlook where we'd spent countless Sunday mornings. Chloe was wearing one of my old hoodies that I'd left at the house. "Some things just feel right. #no regrets," the caption declared. Each post was a carefully aimed dart, and I knew every single one was meant for me. Mutual friends, caught in the awkward crossfire, would report back to me, their voices laced with pity. "Maya, I saw Leo and Chloe at the farmer's market," one friend, Sarah, told me over the phone. "They were all over each other. It was a lot." "He looks so happy," another one mentioned, hesitantly. "Chloe is really bringing him out of his shell." I let them think it was working. I played the part of the broken-hearted woman they all expected me to be. I deactivated my social media accounts. I declined invitations to parties I knew they'd be attending. I let the narrative they were spinning take root, that I was the boring, stagnant girlfriend, and Chloe was the vibrant, exciting woman who had set Leo free. I let them believe they were winning. The local gossip mill churned with their story. They made sure of it. They told people I was possessive, that I held Leo back from his artistic dreams, that I was emotionally distant. They painted me as the villain to justify their own treachery. It was a classic move, and honestly, I was almost impressed by the sheer audacity of it all. There's an old saying my grandfather used to use, a bit grim, but brutally honest. Man, folks will dance on your grave before they see if you're even dead. That's exactly what they were doing. They were dancing. They rented a trendy, overpriced apartment downtown they definitely couldn't afford, throwing a housewarming party and inviting everyone we knew. I heard about it from Sarah, who went out of a sense of morbid curiosity. It was so fake, Maya. Everything was for show. They had expensive champagne, but were serving it with cheap cheese and crackers. Chloe kept talking about their plans to travel the world, and Leo was going on about a huge art commission he'd supposedly landed. I just listened, a small, knowing smile on my face. Let them dance. Let them put on their show. Let them burn through whatever little money they had, trying to prove to the world and to themselves that they had made the right choice. I knew the truth. Their entire relationship was built on a foundation of lies and a shared credit card that was rapidly approaching its limit. A structure like that can't stand for long. I kept my head down and focused on my work. While they were posting selfies, I was closing deals. While they were at brunch, I was building my portfolio. I was turning my pain into fuel, my anger into ambition. I let them have their moment in the sun, enjoying the warmth of their perceived victory. They had no idea I was quietly building a skyscraper that would soon cast a shadow so large it would blot out their little world entirely. They thought I was buried and gone. But the day would come when they realized I wasn't the one in the grave. Pride is a powerful anesthetic. For a while, it can numb you to the harsh realities of your own bad decisions. Leo and Chloe were high on it for months. They were the couple who had dared to follow their hearts, the romantic heroes of their own story. But anesthesia wears off, and when it does, the pain hits you all at once. The first sign that their perfect little world was starting to fray came, as it often does, with money. Leo's big art commission never materialized, of course. It was just a story he'd spun to sound impressive. The reality was he was still working part-time at the bookstore, and his paintings were gathering dust in their expensive, empty apartment. Chloe's admin salary was barely enough to cover her own expenses, let alone half the rent on a place that was double what she was used to paying. The whispers started again, but this time they weren't about how happy the new couple was. They were about the arguments. A friend who lived in their building told me she could hear them shouting through the thin walls. It was always about money, Maya, she said. Heard him yelling about her online shopping, and she screamed back that at least she was bringing in a steady paycheck, unlike some starving artists. The facade was cracking. The confident, carefree couple on Instagram was being replaced by a stressed, bickering pair who were in way over their heads. Chloe, who had always seemed so effortlessly chic when she was spending my money on our girls' nights out, started to look tired. The designer knockoffs she was buying weren't fooling anyone. She began calling old friends, not just to chat, but to casually mention how tight things were, fishing for sympathy or perhaps a loan. Leo, on the other hand, started missing the stability he once had with me. He didn't miss me, not yet. He missed the comfort. He missed the fact that the bills were always paid on time, that the fridge was always full, that he never had to worry about whether he could afford to put gas in his car. He missed the safety net that I had provided, the one he'd so carelessly shredded. Meanwhile, I decided it was time to re-emerge. Subtly, of course. I reactivated my social media, but my feed was different now. It wasn't about my personal life. It was about my professional one. I posted a photo from a business conference in New York, a skyline view from my hotel room at the Mandarin Oriental. The caption was simple: "Incredible week of meetings, feeling inspired." A week later, I posted a picture of a sleek, brand new Audi parked in my driveway. Decided to treat myself. Hard work pays off. It wasn't a Ferrari, it wasn't loud or flashy, it was quiet luxury. It was a statement. The messages started trickling in from mutual friends. "Wow, Maya, you're killing it. That car is beautiful." I knew every comment, every like, was a notification on Leo's and Chloe's phones. I was planting seeds of doubt in their minds, letting them see glimpses of a life they had assumed I wasn't capable of living. Chloe was the first to reach out directly. A text message popped up on my screen one evening. "Hey you, long time no talk. Saw your new car on Insta, looks amazing. We should catch up soon." The nerve of it almost made me laugh out loud. Catch up. I knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to see if the rumors were true, to gauge the extent of my success, and maybe, just maybe, to see if there was anything left for her to gain. I didn't reply. My silence was a more powerful answer than any words I could have written. The real turning point, though, came in the form of an email, an invitation to our mutual friend Sarah's engagement party. It was being held at a swanky downtown lounge, the kind of place Leo and Chloe had been pretending they could afford to frequent. I knew they would be there. I also knew they would be expecting the old Maya to show up. Quiet, reserved, maybe a little sad. They had no idea they were about to meet someone else entirely. And then, one dinner invite changed everything. The night of Sarah's engagement party, I took my time getting ready. This wasn't just a party for me, it was a debut. The reintroduction of Maya, not as the victim, but as the victor. I didn't choose a flashy dress. Instead, I opted for a simple, impeccably tailored black silk jumpsuit that whispered elegance rather than shouting for attention. My hair was styled in a way that was sophisticated and effortless. My makeup was minimal, emphasizing a confidence that came from within. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a trace of the heartbroken woman who had collapsed on her hallway floor 6 months ago. I saw a woman who had built herself back up, stronger and more formidable than before. I walked into the lounge, and the low hum of conversation paused for a beat as a few heads turned. I saw Sarah first, and her face lit up. She rushed over to hug me. "Maya, you look, wow, just wow. You're the one getting married," I laughed. "You're supposed to be the stunning one." Over her shoulder, I could see them, Leo and Chloe. They were standing near the bar, looking distinctly out of place. Leo was in a faded blazer that looked a size too small, and Chloe was in a dress that was trying too hard. They were nursing their drinks, looking less like a happy couple and more like two people trying to survive the evening. They saw me, and for a second, both their faces registered a blank confusion, as if they didn't quite recognize me. I spent the first hour mingling, deliberately staying on the other side of the room. I let them watch me. I let them see me laughing with old friends, connecting with new people, radiating an energy they had never seen in me before. I could feel their eyes on me, a mixture of curiosity and, I suspected, a growing sense of unease. The moment of revelation came, as I had planned, organically. I was talking to a small group, including a guy named Mark, who worked in finance. "So, Maya, what have you been up to?" he asked. "I heard you started your own thing. How's that going?" I smiled modestly. "It's been going well, thanks. We just landed a major international client, so we're expanding. It's been a whirlwind." "We?" Another friend chimed in. "You hired people?" "Just a small team for now," I said casually, "a project manager and 2 junior consultants. It was getting to be too much to handle on my own." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Leo's posture stiffen. He was close enough to hear every word. Then Mark, ever the numbers guy, asked the question. "That's amazing. You must be doing pretty well for yourself. I saw you bought a place over in the Heights. That neighborhood is no joke. The property values are insane." I just shrugged, taking a sip of my champagne. It was a good investment. That was it. The final, undeniable confirmation. The new team, the international client, and the house in the most expensive, exclusive neighborhood in the city. It was all delivered with a casualness that made it all the more devastating. I finally turned my head and looked directly at them. Chloe's jaw had literally dropped. Her perfectly applied lipstick couldn't hide the slack, stunned O of her mouth. Her eyes darted from me to Leo, a storm of confusion, jealousy, and pure, unadulterated rage brewing in them. She wasn't just looking at me, she was looking at the life she could have had. But it was Leo's face that I will never forget. It was a kaleidoscope of emotions, each one more pathetic than the last. First, disbelief, then shock, then a dark, ugly wave of envy, and finally, the slow, dawning horror of realization. The predictable, boring, safe woman he had discarded was not just successful, she was wealthy beyond his comprehension. He hadn't just traded down, he had fumbled a winning lottery ticket for a piece of lint. He looked at me and then at Chloe, and in that single glance, I saw their entire sham of a relationship crumble into dust. He wasn't just looking at the woman he'd left, he was looking at the man he had failed to be. I held his gaze for a long moment. I could have smiled. I could have given him a smug little smirk to twist the knife. Tell me, should I have smiled or twisted the knife? I didn't either. I simply gave him a small, polite, and utterly dismissive nod before turning back to my conversation. The dismissal was colder, sharper, and more satisfying than any insult I could have ever hurled, because what happened next was sweeter than revenge. The fallout from that night was swift and glorious. The bomb had detonated, and they were standing at ground zero. I didn't have to do anything else. I just had to sit back and watch the shockwaves do their work. Leo was the first to break. 2 days after the party, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I no longer had saved, but knew all too well. "Hey, can we talk?" I ignored it. An hour later, another one. "Maya, please, I was a fool. I know that now." I let that one sit for the rest of the day. That evening, he called. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. The message he left was a rambling, pathetic monologue. He talked about how confused he'd been, how he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He even tried to throw Chloe under the bus. She got in my head. She made me think I wanted something I didn't. What we had, that was real. I listened to the message and I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel satisfaction. I just felt nothing. He was a ghost, a relic from a past life that no longer concerned me. But he was persistent. He showed up at my office building a few days later, waiting for me by the entrance. He looked terrible. The confident, charming artist was gone, replaced by a haggard, desperate man. "Maya," he said, stepping in front of me, "just give me 5 minutes." I stopped, folding my arms. I looked him up and down, my expression unreadable. "You have won." He launched into his pre-rehearsed speech, his voice cracking. He told me he loved me, that he'd always loved me. He said seeing me at the party so successful and happy made him realize what he'd thrown away. "We can have that life, Maya," he pleaded. "The house, everything. I can be the man you deserve." I let him finish. When he was done, panting slightly from the sheer effort of his performance, I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Leo," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You can't. The man I deserve would never have done what you did. The life I have, I built myself. Not for you, not for anyone. For me. You didn't throw me away. You set me free." I saw the hope drain from his face, replaced by a hollow defeat. "This conversation is over," I said, and then I did something I never thought I would. I smiled. A genuine, pitying smile. I really do wish you the best. You're going to need it. I walked past him and didn't look back. Chloe's downfall was quieter, but in many ways, more complete. She lost everything. Her relationship with Leo imploded, of course. He couldn't look at her without seeing everything he'd lost with me. Their arguments became legendary. He resented her for not being me, and she resented him for being a failure. She had hitched her wagon to a broken-down horse, and now she was stranded. She lost her friends, too. Once the full story came out, not just the affair, but the depth of my quiet success they had mocked, people saw her for what she was, a jealous, opportunistic user. The invitations stopped. The calls went unanswered. She had sacrificed her closest friendship for a man who now despised her. And in the process, she had torched every other bridge she had. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents in her hometown, and Leo is couch surfing, still trying to sell his paintings to anyone who will listen. They thought they were building a new life on the ashes of our relationship. They didn't realize they were just burning themselves down. My grandmother used to say that some debts aren't paid in money, they're settled in other ways. She said, sometimes God don't pay in cash, he pays in karma. And in the end, Leo and Chloe were handed a bill that would take them a lifetime to pay off. As for me, I paid my dues in tears and sleepless nights, and I came out the other side richer in every way that truly matters. So that's my story, a story of betrayal, but also one of resilience. A reminder that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the very thing that saves you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone leave only to regret it later? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's talk about it.